community nature of it. The sense as you listened last night to those horns exchanging conversations and the bass drum and the vocals, there's a rock and roll myth, I think, which has to do with the guitar. The Hard Rock Cafe doesn't have a horn or a piano in front of it, it has a guitar, right? And the simplistic story is there's a kind of rebel blues man, fill in Robert Johnson or someone with a guitar, and he or his music somehow wanders into the cities and up the Mississippi River and comes to Chicago, and rock and roll is born. And it's a music, I think, in that sense, of sort of the outsider and the rebel and that. New Orleans history, I think, is different, and it's a music about community, and it's just as important, and it seems to me we ought to, and we are, this week, changing that myth some. Because it's a music about dialogue, and it's a music about the great families, it's an inherited music, and it's partly a music that comes out of education. I first sort of got to this, I worked with Ernest Withers, a great African-American photographer, in a couple books, one called Memphis Blues, again, about the music in Memphis. And I said, where did Stax come from? What did all this happen? He said, oh, it was the high schools. There were high school music teachers, and a lot of them came out of the big band era, and when the big band era ended, they started teaching in high school. And when you talk to people in New Orleans, there's often a similar story. They're the great high schools with the great teachers, a horn and stuff. Now that isn't how a lot of us picture rock and roll. That isn't Elvis Presley, right? But that is a true measure, I think, of a bunch of the music, is the community. And so when we think about education in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as an educational institution, I think that's a rock and roll tradition. That in fact we teach the next generation about the music and it moves on from there. It isn't something that just comes out of the water and the air. It feels like it sometimes, especially in New Orleans, but it's people teaching other people how to do it, generations.